Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Easy Eddie with Sea Crew Sports Podcast, and today we're going to be judging the Pac 12. And yes, there really are 12 teams in the Pac 12. One bit of advice about the Pac 12, one little outlook. They're the worst of the Power 5, and if you disagree with that, I'd like to know why you think they're better than any of the other conferences. All right, moving on. Right away, we're not going to do any division because the Pac 12 doesn't deserve to be broken down by division because they're not competitive with each other. And I've got the 12 teams. I got a surprise for everybody. Oregon is going to win the Pac 12 this year. Unfortunately, they are going to have 3 overall losses, 2 conference losses. I've got them losing to Auburn in the first week. And then I have them beating Stanford and beating Washington State. But, between Stanford, Washington State, Washington, they don't play Utah, which is kind of interesting. One of the reasons I put them in first. I think that between Stanford, Washington State, Washington, and Oregon, those are going to be great teams in the Pac-12 this year. But I do have Oregon winning out. And our guest today, Jordan, why don't you give us your opinion on Oregon, and what do you think about my pick?
I'm a little surprised that you have them losing to Stanford. I know Stanford's a great team, and the game is at Stanford this year.
Yeah.
I still think I think this is the year of Oregon. I really do. I just think they have it this year.
So we actually agree.
But the only game I have them losing would probably be either Auburn or Washington, being that the game is at Washington. I have them going 10-2. I can't see them going 11-1, unfortunately.
No.
I think it would be nice to. I think if the Pac-12 is going to have any team make the playoff, I think it should be Oregon. But I can't see them only losing one game. I think they're going to trip up at least twice, but I do think they will win their division and ultimately the conference.
All right. Going on to the second best team in the Pac-12 is going to be Washington. I think the Huskies have a really good chance this year also of winning the conference, being in that final game. I do have them losing to Oregon, and I do have them losing to Stanford, but I have them winning out the rest of the season, so they might end up with the best overall record, but because they might lose to Oregon, I've got them in second place. What do you think about this? I mean, take the BYU game. That's going to be a good game, right?
It will be a good game, and it's going to be Washington and Oregon vying for that last spot. I definitely agree with that. I think it'll ultimately come down to that Washington-Oregon game, and
But they're in the same division.
Right, they're in the same division, so that's why I say it's ultimately going to come down to that game,
Right.
To determine who wins that division. I think Oregon is the better team. Washington, though, if they beat Oregon, I think they're going to win that division and probably the conference too, because I think the Pac-12 South is just a bunch of hot garbage. But if they only lose one game this year, it'll probably be Oregon. I honestly don't see them losing another game, at least in conference. So,
Wow. Okay.
Besides Oregon, I don't think any team is really on the same level as Washington right now. They have that transfer Jacob Eason from Georgia coming in.
Right.
So they lose. Really, I think he might be better than Jake Browning was at Washington. So,
All right. No, I mean, that's a good pick. We're going to move on to the next team. I have Stanford coming in overall third, and also would be third in the same division. Notice that all 3 teams are from the same division. But anyway, they play a notable first game against Northwestern, and of course, I'm a Big Ten Northwestern guy, so I want to see Northwestern beat Stanford, and they have a really good chance of beating Stanford. Then I have them going on a losing streak until they play Oregon. Now, this is really strange, but I'm telling you, this is how Pac-12 football happens. And the top 5 teams tend to beat each other. I don't remember the last time there was an undefeated Pac-12 team that ran the table in NCAA football. Do you? I mean, USC had a year, Oregon had a year, and then we had Washington had a great year. But they just tend to really flub in the postseason. So I've got them losing to Washington State. I've got them also in that incredible last game, so losing to Notre Dame. So looking at this here, how do you feel about the pick?
Well, I am like a fan of Stanford when it comes to Pac-12 teams. I always like to see them do well. They're typically an academic institution. I like to see academic institutions do well in athletics because it shows that you need both. Um, Unfortunately, though, for Stanford this year, their schedule is just downright tough.
It's tough.
Their first four games are all slugfests.
Yeah.
Northwestern, USC, UCF, and Oregon to start the year.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, the one against UCF is at UCF.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they anticipated with this when they scheduled them.
Yeah. It's a tough first 4 games.
And then it kind of cools down in the middle a little bit. They still have to play Washington, obviously.
Yeah,
The game
yeah.
is at home, though. And then to close the year, they host Notre Dame. So it's going to be a tough season for Stanford. I can't see them doing any better than 8-4, 7-5, though, unfortunately.
Would you say Stanford probably has the toughest schedule out of any team in the Pac-12?
So far that we've examined, yeah,
Yeah.
they definitely do.
Okay. Moving on to Washington State. I have Washington State overall 8-4, but unfortunately those 4 losses come by way of conference losses, which would make them 5-4 in the conference. However, unfortunately for the Pac-12, 5-4 is 4th best, and they're going to win their first 3 games. The game against Houston, that might be a little iffy, but then they play UCLA, and then they play Arizona State, and then they play Utah. I think they're going to start off the season really good, top 25 ranked, and they're going to hit Utah, and they're going to go bam, and they're going to have a bad second half and go 3-3.
Yeah, they definitely have a tougher second half of the year than a Stanford. And I think they're going to be very similar to Stanford. I don't see them winning any more than 8 games this year, honestly. Last year was great. Gardner Minshew was so fun to watch, but unfortunately, I think this might be the start of an decline for Washington State. Even though Mike Leach is one of my favorite coaches of all time,
Right.
I love him. But unfortunately, I think this might start the decline for Washington State.
Moving on, the team that I have beating Washington State, but yet still is not as good, is Utah. And I have Utah actually winning the division in their division. And I think they're going to lose to BYU, and I think they're going to lose to USC. I think they're going to lose to Washington, Cal, and Arizona State.
Hey, pause the video. Pause the video. Your mom's outside waiting for me. Nana's here.
So next is Utah, and they're going to win their division. But they're going to be 7-5 with 4 conference losses and the 1 loss outside coming from BYU. And now there will be a good game between NIU week number 2. So it's possible this could be a 6-6 overall team winning the division. That's just unbelievable. But here's the thing. I have them losing to Cal and Arizona State. So the thing is that I think the Pac-12 is the toughest to predict because they're the worst conference. And I got them beating Arizona, UCLA, Colorado, Oregon State. I do have them beating Washington State and losing to USC. So again, it's like, how do you predict this? But I still think overall, my picks might be wrong. But I think overall they're going to win their division. How do you feel about that?
I think they'll win the division. I don't think they'll go 7-5 though, as you suggest. I have Utah going 9-3. Well, I'm looking at the schedule here. I guarantee 2 losses, but I can't see them going 10-2.
They don't play Oregon.
They don't, but they do go at Washington, and they do go at BYU and USC. I think they'll win at least one of those games, but I think they're gonna slip up somewhere else along the line.
I can see an 8-4.
I can see it. I'm saying 9-3, but I could see an 8-4 as well.
And they're coming off 2 losses in a row last year in the season, so maybe they'll come back with some vengeance. All right, next one is a little tricky to continue because I've got Arizona State. Now, to me, from this point down, it doesn't really matter, so I'm just going to kind of skip by a few of them. I'm saying Arizona State, I think they're going to go 7-5 also, but they're going to have more conference losses. They got that game versus Michigan State week number 3. How do you feel about Michigan State versus Arizona State? Will that be a great game to watch or no?
Well, last year was a bit of a stunner with Arizona State beating Michigan State. Well,
yeah.
We did find out that Michigan State wasn't as good as we thought they were.
That's right, we did. They weren't.
Looking at the Arizona State schedule, I do think they'll probably lose to Michigan State this year. If Michigan State can get a quarterback that can throw farther than like 10 feet, then Michigan State will win because their defense is always great. I think they're going to lose to Michigan State, Cal, Utah, UCLA. I think they're going to go at least 7-5, maybe, if not worse too.
Okay.
I think they're going to lose most, if not all, of their road games this year. Actually,
Yeah.
prediction, except for maybe Oregon State. But other than that, Arizona State 7-5 at best.
And then after that, we have a sharp decline in quality, with Cal being the best of the bottom of the barrel teams, if that's even a thing. I've got them 5-7, and they play Stanford, they play all the good teams. They play Oregon, they play Stanford, they play Washington State, they play Utah, they play Washington. I mean, that's a tough schedule for Pac-12.
Yeah, I kind of agree. You kind of had a drop off when you said, all right, we're going to do the Pac-12 standings. That's when the drop off happened.
Yeah, right. Except for maybe the winner.
Right. Yeah, Cal definitely has a tough schedule this year. Even that North Texas game in week 3,
the Mean
North
Green.
Texas,
Yeah.
They beat Arkansas by 27 last year.
Yeah, but Arkansas is
Arkansas.
Arkansas stinks, right? So.
The only games that I'm going to say Cal's going to win is UC Davis, North Texas maybe, Arizona State. They're probably either going to go 5-7 or 4-8 this year. Their schedule is pretty tough. So
I don't want to give Cal any more time, or Arizona anymore. I've got Arizona at 4-8. Is that too? Is it giving them too much or too little? Or
nah, I don't. Arizona State again. I think they're in kind of the same position as Cal.
Yeah.
They are. I guess you could say the weaker division.
Yeah.
I think they're kind of the cause of that.
Yeah, they're kind of the cause.
Is Khalil Tate coming back? I don't know because he was a breakout star for a minute.
Right, for a minute. But
I think.
Here's the thing. No matter how you look at these teams, the biggest question is, where do you put the next team? USC. I've got them towards the bottom. As a matter of fact, I've got them not winning really hardly. I've got them almost last in their division. And USC, the reason why, I'm going to spend just a second here, but it's nice to talk about the teams and the conferences that I don't really care for when you got a great team that goes downhill. And USC is one of those teams that their coach is literally on the hot seat right now. I do not see him performing. If you look at their schedule, they can lose to Fresno State. They can lose to BYU. They can lose to Notre Dame. I mean, they play some good teams. I don't see him getting. I made him 6-6 because I don't see USC getting past six wins this year, and I don't know which wins they're gonna get or which losses they're gonna get, but I don't see them past 6 wins.
And those first 6 games,
Right.
Holy moly, that's a tough. This is tough for USC, man.
Yeah, that's why I don't see him.
I don't see them winning more than 6. I don't see him winning more than 6 games this year.
Especially with, the thing is, they're either going to be the best or they're going to be horrible.
Right.
Because that's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take to get a new coach. Is they're either going to, either they win out and do great and win the whole Pac-12, and if they don't, they're getting a new coach next year. And I feel like a lot of times they're going to, like, when your coach is on the hot seat, right? He's getting judged. He's getting looked at. The athletic director's like, man, okay, they play Fresno State and they lose. I think he's done. He's done.
And of course, the rumors. The guy the number one candidate to be hired at USC, Mr. Urban Meyer. What I keep hearing angers me.
We'll see. He says he's done with football.
He says he's done, but he said that at Florida too. So
he'll be 95 coaching somewhere. I think he just needs to go to the NFL. But that's a whole nother conversation. All right, let's get off USC and talk about Barack Obama's favorite team one year for picks in college basketball, the Colorado, right?
Colorado. Jeez.
Is it the Buffalo?
I think it's Buffaloes.
Yeah, it is. So they play Big 12 opponent Colorado State. Unfortunately, as Colorado State stinks, I still have them losing to them. But I have them beating Nebraska, only because, Nebraska, honestly, I could probably go back and change that to a loss for Colorado. But I was trying to be nice. And even the game versus Air Force. So I've got Colorado stinking it up at 2-10, 0-8 in the So what do you think?
Yeah, best case scenario, I don't see them winning more than 4 games this year, and they could lose more than that. They had that year a couple years ago. Like, they made the Pac-12 championship. They were looking really good, but against top competition, they faltered. And then last year, went 5-7. I mean, it's just going downhill.
That's not bad for last year, but they haven't. There's nothing there that shows me they're gonna be as good as they were last year. So,
Right.
all right, moving on to the next team. Almost at the bottom is UCLA. And you know what? They play Cincinnati to start the season. Loss. They might win their FCS opponent, right? This is a San Diego Aztecs?
San Diego State,
yeah. They might win that. So I gave them a W there. But, I mean, all the other games. They play Oklahoma. I mean, that's, and then, they play Oregon State. They may win that, but anyway,
yeah.
The only win they got is something I called versus USC. And again, this is just for fun, but I'm halfway serious. I could see USC tanking at the end of the season because of their situation and UCLA winning. I can just see that. But anyway, they're going to go 1-11 or 2-10. Any comments?
I don't agree with that, actually. I think this is Chip Kelly's second year, and I think they're gonna make a bowl game.
So who
this
would
year,
you
actually.
who really think they're gonna get 6 wins? So where would you put them?
I think they're gonna get 6 wins.
Okay, so who are they gonna beat in their schedule? Look at this schedule. Look.
I saw the schedule, but I'm telling you, I think they're
All
gonna
right,
steal
answer this
a lot
question.
of the
Do you
wins
think
this
they're gonna
year.
beat Arizona?
I think they're gonna lose 3 out of the first 5 games, but I think they're gonna give Stanford a run for their money. They're gonna give USC a run for their money, and the only teams that I definitely can see them lose are definite losses. I think Cincinnati's a definite loss. First game of the
Okay.
year, I don't think Cincinnati's really good.
They're under
Cincinnati's top
pressure to
25.
be great. Okay.
They're Cincinnati's top 25 right now.
Got it,
They're
got
gonna lose to Oklahoma. They're probably gonna lose to Stanford
What about Washington State?
and Utah, not Washington State. I don't think that's
They're
a
gonna
guarantee
beat
loss.
Washington State?
I didn't say they were gonna win, but I'd say it's probably 50-50.
Okay.
That's 4 guaranteed losses
Right.
that I just said. That's 8-4. Now I don't think they're gonna win 8 games, but I think they're gonna be at least 6-6. They're gonna go to a bowl game this year.
Well, I try to do everything best case scenario. Like worst case scenario, UCLA is 0-12. Best case scenario, I think they're 2-10. But anyway, moving on to the very bottom, and they probably have the funniest logo too, which is beaver with these huge 2 front teeth. At one point in time, a few years ago, and they had it going on. But as it is for those teams that don't have recruits, I got them going 1-11 with a win over Cal Poly. They play the Oklahoma State Cowboys first week, and the last week they play Oregon. They play the only out-of-conference game that they play that's even winnable is Cal Poly. Well, I take it back. They will probably play well versus Hawaii, but
Yeah, I don't see them winning any more. The best case scenario, I think, for them is 2 games. Now, this is a broken program. I want them to do good,
right.
but I just don't see it happening.
Right. So, what I have is a very similar to last year, a championship game where Utah wins the division, and Utah plays Oregon or Washington. But I think this is Oregon's comeback year. I just have that feeling where the Ducks, they're gonna get. They got a running back. I think they're gonna do okay. And I guess if there's any team in the Pac-12 that I want to see do well, it is Oregon.
Oh, for sure.
All right, so we're gonna wrap this up with the final standings of the top 5. We got Oregon at 9-3, 7-2 in the conference, and the reason why they're in first is because one of their wins was Washington, who's also going to be 7-2, but they're overall 10-2, so they're going to be battling top 10 by the end of the year. And I don't see a 10-2 Washington or a 9-3 or a 10-3 Oregon if they were to win the conference game, getting into the playoffs. So I'm going to go ahead and predict, and if I was a betting man, I'd put $1 down to say that no Pac-12 team's going to get in the playoffs. And what do you have to say about that?
I would tend to agree with that. It's unfortunate because I'd rather see a ton of Pac-12 teams in about 90% of the SEC or ACC, but unfortunately,
There's just no room for them when you got a conference that's that bad against each other. It's not like they're competitive because they're not going to win their out-of-conference games.
And the committee doesn't like them either. The committee is the worst thing to ever happen to college football. A topic for another video, but
Right.
they don't like the Pac-12 just because I don't think they're significant. The committee doesn't think they're significant at all. So it's unfortunate, but the only chance they have is either Oregon or Washington. Besides that, I don't see it happening, unfortunately.
All right, well, that's going to wrap up the Pac-12, and if you didn't like it, let me know. If you loved it, let me know too. This is Easy Eddie for Sea Cruise Sports with guest host Jordan. We'll see you later.